Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Quantum Compass, where we navigate the galactic flow. My name is David.
And my name is Bella. Welcome back.
All right, so we're going to be looking at the upcoming wave spell of the red magnetic moon, as well as some of the astrological components that are happening during that 13-day period, and casting our eyes into the skies above to have a look at what's going on up there and hopefully make sense of it for all of us so that we can navigate this particular pivotal and quite powerful period.
Yes, so hopefully we all made it to the other side of this big convergence, and we're going to give us a short summary of the big activations and realizations that came during this last wave spell of the Yellow Warrior. So we'll do a short summary and then we'll jump into the next part of the show.
Right, so as always, we'll be pulling up some slides shortly just to pick out the pertinent points so that you can also perhaps mark them down wherever you feel would be useful in a journal, a diary, or whatever feels appropriate to you. But we're going to take a slightly different tack to start this new episode. And moving forwards, we're going to do this more often, which is just have a little review, as Bella's just said, of the previous Wavespell, because it can seem sometimes that they're isolated 13 days, then 13 days, and 13 days. But as Bella has shown in many of the presentations, and probably will do it again today, they're actually conjoined. It's one never-ending, seamless story that is flowing together. And that's quite a critical word for this Wavespell, right, Bella?
Yes, and we'll talk a lot about being in the flow because this is the red moon wave spell, which is going to teach us many things: purification, being in the flow, self-remembrance. We'll talk about many of those things.
Many things. So where would you like to start, Bella? Just to look at the review of the last Wavespell, which was the Yellow Magnetic Warrior, with the big convergence that we were looking at along with our brothers, particularly Ruben and Mercury, and we had the whole Timeline to Convergence series that we shared in the run-up to that.
Lots of wonderful guests.
Lots of wonderful guests. So much love and gratitude to all of the people that appeared in that series, and hopefully definitely inspired certainly us, but many of you to look at what the convergence was about, because it was something really powerful and palpable. But we'd love to hear how it was for you. So please do pop your comments in the box. And at the same time, if you like the video, hit like and subscribe. So now that we've got that bit out of the way, Bella, how would you like to look at the review of that Wavespell? What did you think was important?
So we'll start the review with knowing that it was a big roller coaster type of energy. There was a lot of intensity, and we needed to review everything that had happened to the old world so we could go through the convergence and start opening to the new world, which is the highest timeline where we all are inhabited now. But where we start constructing and building, we needed to understand what actually happened. So we're doing kind of the demolition report of what actually was before and how we're going to not repeat the same mistakes. And we're now being fully supported to go into the future activation and how we're going to do things. So we need to start talking about the world, the hijacking of the world, how we, for thousands of years, actually have lived under interdimensional and ET interference, which has affected our time, our timelines, has been using our life force, has been in control of our mind through lots of programs and indoctrination and many other things. And all of this came for review in this wave spell. We needed to have quantum witnesses. So if you experienced any of those things where you had to release some of these controls and some of these mind control programs, emotions and fear that came for you that you needed to review, and even in this wave spell that we're going to start, that is part of how the world is now changing. We're liberating ourselves of everything that was, but first we need to understand what was in order to continue.
Yeah, so in the preparation for this video, myself and Bella were just reviewing all of the things that she's just alluded to, but also we kind of realized that the hijacking, as we call it, and our audience will know what we're talking about, was actually much more complete. The totality of our energetic systems, as embodied in our physical body, all of the chakras have been hijacked in different ways. So maybe it's worth just a little review, perhaps, of how that happens. So we have our crown chakra. I'm not including the soul star or the earth star heart chakra here for deliberate reasons in this moment, but the crown chakra is our connection to the divine, to the cosmos, and that informs how we navigate down here in the 3D. That, unfortunately, was being hijacked by some of the offered medications of the last few years, which was disconnecting people there. Then we came into the third eye, which is also our psychic abilities, and through clever projections into the astral realms, we were being fed often faulty information, which isn't very helpful. Then we come to the crown chakra with the faulty information and the disconnection from the divine. The words come out not with the right resonance.
And the lack of connection to our spirit. We couldn't communicate in connection to our higher self properly. So that was part of also the hijack.
Then, of course, the heart chakra. I don't think it takes too much explanation to understand that it's been very, very difficult for the entire planet to be in the existence of unconditional love, the natural state of the heart, for many reasons that would take far too long to explain here. Then we come to the solar plexus chakra, the seat of I am, our sense of who we are, also hijacked by lots of programs that basically put false identities into us that weren't really us. Some of them were absorbed through the screens, from societal situations, but also through, as Bella's already alluded to, extraterrestrial interference. Hopefully this isn't too much of a shock for most of you watching this video, because it's going to become very common knowledge very, very soon, because until that's realized, we're not going to really progress too far in the understanding of who we are. Then we come to the sacral chakra, the roots of our creative powers, where our divine flame, the dragon breath that brings all creation into the womb space, also being hijacked in many, many different ways, including our sexual energies as part of that through many projections coming from the screens, objectification, lower frequency sexual energies projected through the screens, many things like that. And then we come to the root chakra, which is really our ability to ground into the earth. Also hijacked.
More than that, I think that is one of the key ones, because it's about our survival.
Right.
And when they have kept us, when they did keep us under survival mode, under fear, just think of the amount of news, just trying to project fear and all of the horrible things that could get you in a state of worry, and just keep on chasing money and keep on chasing and competition because of that survival issue. So now we get to see how they have done all of these. And as the systems start to collapse, we get to review how they've done it and how we want to experience life moving forward. The survival and the connection to the earth was also, we got disconnected from our mother, from Mother Earth. And once we realize that we are fully connected to Mother Earth, then that comes back, and we realize that whatever we do to the earth, we're doing to ourselves. So that's going to be super key, because another part of the hijacking was the toxicity, either through chemtrails, everything that goes in the food, the GM food, everything that they've done to everything that we ingest, the air, the pollution, everything has a repercussion to what our body, our DNA can actually get activated. And because we have now started the process of full activation of the 13 strands of DNA, we need to review all of those things and start removing and understanding what doesn't work anymore.
Right, so there are a few key factors in there, and you probably already worked out what a few of them are. A lot of it is to do with the technology, the misuse of the technology, and everything that devices seem to give us that's convenient, but it's actually quite distracting. And when we're distracted, we're being pulled away from our true selves, the true reason why we came here to planet Earth. And at the same time, we're receiving a lot of false narratives, programming, energies, parasitic energies, many, many different things. And it's almost a complete planetary system. We called it the mind of the machine in a recent immersion. Those of you who are on that, you'll know what we're talking about. And many of the things that we're sharing here, we've shared many, many times before, but sometimes it's worth just putting it into a review. So what we have been looking at during this last wave spell is how all of this was affecting our ability to be ourselves, our natural selves. And then in meditation to work out, well, if this is my natural self and I'm engaged in this behavior, why? Where is that impetus coming from? So really a lot of this was understanding the nature of the mind. Really, really important. Of course, if you're a Buddhist student, you'll know a lot about this, but really we're understanding the mind is not quite what we thought it it was actually hijacked. And when that mind technology for us down here in the third dimension, which is a way of navigating the 3D, the mind is a useful tool. But when it has an overlay from the top into that program, it spreads across the whole grid, and we are part of the grid. And so we're in that. And until that was released, we were stuck basically. But the good news is with that convergence and many other things that happened in the run up to it, that has now been released. So one way to look at this is the words that Terence McKenna once used. He said, we're spiraling down to the bottom of the eschaton. And many of you will know about this, but now we got to that point. That was the convergence, the bottom of the downward spiral. And so now we're sort of spiraling up and out, which has many, many interesting aspects to it, because as we spiral up and out into the future, we're also going to be able to look back down the original timeline to see how did all of this happen, because the history that we have been given is not the truth. It's full of timeline hacks and splices and manipulations and false stories and false gods and false monarchs and usurp the whole piece, right? Again, probably worthy of a 5-hour video. But if we can allow ourselves to believe that that's now been undone and we're on the upwards and outwards spiral, and that we really can feel into that with that convergence and with all of the energy coming from Lemmon and Atlas and Swann and seemingly the whole plethora that's creating this, we can say, cosmic symphony around us and in conjunction with the sun and the moon, all of which we'll look at shortly. For this Wavespell, we can see that the possibility now for all of that to be revealed, to be disclosed, to be healed, so that we can move forwards while still being able to look back, because we're going to discover the true history of ourselves. We're going to discover the connection to places like Mars and other planets in our universe, and possibly even other planets that we don't know about in our universe.
And our whole galactic history.
Our galactic history at the same time, yes.
So at the heart, at the core of this convergence is the peace. We needed to be able to come as a planet to a point of peaceful agreements where whatever they look like at the moment, it is important to connect to the peace node, which is what is going to happen now. Everything that happens on the earth has to have that as a foundation, where every single nation or every single community has a voice, has rights, is respected, there is collaboration, and everybody is in a level playing field to start with. So that is what we see as the beginning of the building of the new structures. And this moon, being the fourth moon, maybe we start sharing the presentation.
Yeah.
So we can start moving through the presentation.
And also, just on that note about the peace node, thank you for that, Bill. It's really important because I know if you look into the goggle box and the screens and the devices, it doesn't look like there is a peace node. I know that, and I know it's a bit confusing, but we both felt the peace node kick in with the convergence and are trusting to what we feel rather than what is being presented, which is really another way of us saying everything that we've already said, right? So tune into that peace node and let it grow within you. So we'll have a look at the presentation now. Hopefully that little review of what's just gone makes it all a little easier.
And now is when things get exciting, I think is what we need to keep in our minds. Now is when the activation of our DNA happens, when we start dreaming into what we want to create, the projects, the ideas. Now they can be anchored. Before they couldn't. There was too much disturbance, there was too much distortion. But now that those systems are being removed, the new can be built. Okay.
Right, so here we are in this Wavespell of the red magnetic moon, which is the first Wavespell in the final castle of this year, which is a 52-day cycle of 4 Wavespells. And in this one, we're now moving into the element of ether, the creative energy, which actually fits really, really well with all the energies that are going on. So as always, our Mayan cosmic navigator, Bella, is going to talk us through the various different components to help set the coordinates for what is going to be perhaps one of the most spectacular 13 days that us humans have perceived for a very, very long time.
Right. So yes, this castle of 52 days is super crucial because it's the beginning and we set the tone for how we're going to start creating. We talked enough about how there was a convergence of so many different timelines. We could even take back not only to 1582 when the Gregorian was installed, but even farther back even to the point of Atlantis, because there was a lot of information about Atlantis and even Lemuria. So all of these timelines have been converged, and we are now ready to review what's happened and start building up, building up, building up. So it has to be a conscious process. That's what many of the things that we have done through these through everything we have done, really, all of the courses has been about activating our multidimensionality, our multidimensional self, the communication with the beings that are helping us do this, whether they are galactic or the plants or whoever is helping us, depending on your connection to your higher self and how you can work with your guardians and helpers as well.
Right, so one of the things that we were looking at in this convergence really is the hijacking of time. And we've talked a lot about that in previous videos, but our brother Ruben really showed us the coordinates were important. One linked back to 1945, and the fission that was created, which really was against humans and Mother Earth. I think you know what we're talking about, which is also related in a very abstract way, too much to explain here, to the 10 days in 1582. And from that point, actually all points in time, when you understand that time isn't linear and it isn't even really a concept, you understand that you can maneuver across vast seeming expanses of linear time in a split second. We know that technology now, but that technology has been known by many, many other beings for a very, very long time. And that is what was being undone. It's super exciting because now we are living in a universal timeline.
Exactly. And our mind is going to start feeling the freedom and the liberation of that. It requires us to be present and to switch to a frequency that is part of natural time. Because once we free our mind, which is where time is, the Gregorian was in charge of controlling and distorting that part, then we can connect to our mind and use our psychic abilities. And we're going to talk a little bit about that during the moon, because it's the moon of the owl. So all of our telepathy, clairaudience, remote viewing, many of those gifts and psychic abilities can start coming online. And so, what we've been going through and will continue to go through is this evolutionary shift that has been prophesied for a long time. And we now see it. At some point, we had 17 comets in the sky. If we needed signs to see what moment we're living in, that was the time. We've had 17. We're going to talk just about a few of the comets here. But this is the turning point. The destiny of the human race has now been decided, and we're now moving forward. And when everything collided, the past, the present, and the future, we now decide how we want to live without fear and to create things that will support everybody. Everyone is important, every single country, every single continent, where masculine and feminine are opposite, equal and opposite, and we all have the same respect and collaboration for everything that we do moving forward. So one of the things that we were talking about also as the summary of what we needed to comprehend in order to move forward was the amount of indoctrination. So not only the time, the 1260 with the artificial mind control grid, which is now being dissolved, but the indoctrination through religious beliefs, political beliefs, the astrology being skewed, not the way that we should be reading the true sky, which just turned people into automatons and just divided everybody, division, war, black and white, and everything that you can think, good and bad, everything that we've been indoctrinated to always separate ourselves from the others, to judge the others, to keep us divided and disempowered. And we're coming to the moment of unity consciousness. We don't need that anymore, and we're moving forward.
I think it's really beautiful that we're in this Wavespell of the moon because we're also learning about the hijacking of the moon in many, many different ways. And one of the hijacks of the moon was to put the year into 12 months when actually there's 13 moons. And that disappearance of the 13th is critical, as we've talked about in many videos, because it doesn't allow the transcendence point, the real connection to the goddess from the previous 12 days. So then we just loop via a circuit breaker back into 12. That's not the universal time frame. And that actually disconnected us from our hearts, which is really another way of saying we got disconnected from the goddess.
And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we go into the astrology, but the way we reconnect back to the 13 and our life force, it's through the 13, which is the Serpent's constellation. If we don't include the Serpent's constellation, not so much Ophiuchus, because Ophiuchus is a being holding the serpent, it's the serpent that connects us all the way back to the galactic center. And that is where our life force can return and the new light waves and life codes can arrive. And then that's the catalyst for our activation and collective transformation, which we're starting now.
And interestingly, as we'll see a little bit later on, there is quite a strong connection between serpents and the moon. In fact, this whole Wavespell, this whole presentation is littered with references to the snakes and the moon. And for those of you that follow Stellar Nations, you'll understand who and what we're talking about, because this is the masculine and feminine aspects that need to come into equal and opposite, but in balance.
Right. So let's get into the presentation about more of the quantum compass. I think the review, but we'll touch on different things here and there. So we're in the highest golden timeline after this convergence, and this is the year of the activation of the cosmic seeds. It's the year of the resonant seed, and that just means that our cosmic selves, all of us star seeds, cosmic seeds, are going to start getting activated, realign, and attune to what is going on in the cosmos. We're going to reconnect to the galactic center now that we're receiving all of the energy from the center of the galaxy. So we have just completed the third moon, which was the electric moon, and is where the convergence happened. Now that we finished the moon of service, we move into the self-existing moon of form. What does that mean? We're going to start building the structure, imagining how we want the systems to be. Pluto right now is destroying all of the systems, and I'm sure you've heard what's happening in the US and all around the world. Systems are collapsing rapidly, and we need to start thinking, so if things collapse, what do we want? We can't keep on giving our power away to external sources and for somebody else to resolve things and create a life for us. Each one of us has to decide, what do you actually want for yourself? How do you want your life to be? What kind of food do you want? How do you want your daily life to be? What kind of community do you want to connect to? What about your spirituality? It should be at the heart of everything, because the disconnection from our spirituality was so key. People thought that by being religious, they were being spiritual, but they were actually having an intermediary that was blocking their direct connection to source energy or God or the universe, however you want to call that connection.
Right, and as we shift from the moon of service, the dear moon, the electric moon, into the self-existing moon where we're creating structure, we can see in this moment that we've just been describing, that is exactly the process we've been in. Many of us, if not all of you watching this, have been in service to humanity, to the goddess, to Gaia, and we had to get to the bottom of what was preventing us from creating a new structure, the new Earth structure within ourselves on our planet, and hopefully the rest of the universe too. It's not just us, it's fractal all the way through the universe. And we've sort of got to understand how important that it actually is. And maybe we'll talk about that at another time. But right now, we're being offered the opportunity to create a new structure with real fairness and justice and equality, and not a leveraged system of finances, which is what we're now realizing we've all been living in, with many other forms of leverage thrown in. And I'm sure many of you can work out what I'm talking about. So we don't need leverage. We need transparency. We need heart energy. We need equality. We need people to make deals or agreements in the common law, which is something that's equal and opposite and beneficial to both, and not skewed where somebody's trying to get something better than what the other person is getting, which is kind of the old model of business that we've been living with.
And something where sovereignty and freedom is at the core of it, because that was never there. We were sold the idea of freedom, but that was never there, really. So with this self-existing moon of form, we can give form to the unseen. So we're entering the green castle, which in this Mayan cosmology represents the ether element, where everything is a possibility, and we can start creating from the unseen, give form. What do you want? The energy of this moon is also supported by the owl, which is the totem, and it helps us see in the dark Also see through the illusions of what, they can't fool us anymore. By now, so many people have been waking up, and the awakening is massive. I've seen it, and it's amazing to see where we have come to. And so with this moon, we can bring more of our intuition, awaken our psychic abilities, and perceive more of the subtle dimensions of the mind. People will start realizing that they were living under lots of frequencies and programs that they didn't understand. And many times they thought it was themselves, but it's not. It was the hijack and the self-sabotage that kept on kicking in. And so now we can connect more fully to the collective mind and the planetary mind and the collective consciousness. And with intention, we can create the reality that we have all been working for. Anything you want
Right.
to add to that?
Not really. I mean, it's a beautiful image of the owl. The owl's a beautiful bird. It's a liminal animal that normally comes out the point between day and night, which is also interesting. It's often linked to psychopomp work, but really it's also connected to the psychic abilities, as Bella's just said. And we've got this beautiful sort of sequence happening with the red moon, with the owl moon, and then we have a new moon, all happening just in a few days' time, as you're going to show us in a minute, right, Bella? And so we've got this incredible possibility to set a new structure using our perhaps not so activated skills, like our psychic skills, the third eye. Imagine what it would be like if all of our technology comes online at one point and we can use all of these gifts to set
Yeah.
this new self-existing structure with a tone 4.
Right. So this moon runs from October 18 today until November 14. And we have a couple of questions that are very useful over these 28 days. What form will my spiritual journey take? Reflect on that, journal on that, and see what comes for you. Also, who are you becoming? Do you have that highest version of yourself? Have you connected to that? And can we allow for it to start manifesting more in our daily life?
Beautiful.
So that's that for the moons. Let's go into the sacred round or the sulking energy. And we're working with the red moon energy, which is my archetype. And there is a lot to work with. We'll go deeper into the Wavespell. But first, let me tell you about the castle, the Green Castle, in honor of the Green Castle. So this is the first wave spell of the four. And as I was saying, if we think of the five castles as five elements, this is the ether element. This is where all the possibilities are. And we just went through the convergence. And the yellow word is telling us, okay, jump on the next castle fully, fearlessly, because we completed a big process for all of humanity. And now we start with the red moon. Then we'll go into the white wind, the blue eagle, and the yellow star. There's going to be four very important wave spells to work with. But let's concentrate on the first one, which is telling us you need to purify, finish the detoxing process, finish working with your energy, also with your emotional body, because we need to keep on activating ourselves. As we detox and purify, we'll go into the next part of the activation. So this wave spell goes from kin 209 to kin 221, and from October 19th through the 31st, sorry. It has 3 galactic activation portals on day 2, on day 3, and on day 10. And I've highlighted here kin 211 because it is one of the days connected to the Pakal Bhutan prophecy. So as we have been tracking each one of those important days, this is another galactic activation portal day, and the electric monkey, it's telling us it's here for the service of what we came to do, which is reconnect with our heart, with our innocence, and create the next part of magic, being playful and being in our hearts. So it's a very important day. On the 21st of October, there are so many things that also happen on that day. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but we wanted to put it into your awareness that that is Epcal Bhutan Day or Quetzalcoatl Day, which actually means that prophetically, that is the return of the energy where we can actually reconnect to this new cycle for new earth, where everybody unites around the world wanting the same thing, which is a new world.
And actually, there's a few interesting loops maybe just bringing in here. First of all, it's a kin 211 on a day 2-1, so there's that. But also, as we'll show in the astrology, the asteroid Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, is conjunct the sun and the moon, which is also significant. But this is also, as Bella said, we're looking very much at the serpent's energy. And strangely, over the last Wavespell, a lot of information has appeared in different channels talking about some of these beings and looking at them through a different perspective of history, all of which is what we perceive is going to happen much more quickly and more expansively as many of the luminous minds on this planet cast their attention to the areas of history that have fascinated them. And for many people, the whole idea of the snake beings, the Anunnaki, as they're often known, Quetzalcoatl and Toph and Yeshua, and many, many lineages of spiritual beings that these people have been inhabited by at various points in time are now becoming more clear in our awareness as to actually who they are, not as the beings that like Davyd and Bella are in this time zone or those beings were in other time zones, but spiritual beings who've inhabited many timelines with different but similar avatars.
And you know what? That number 9, which is the number of the red moon, is actually the number of all of these beings that come with a message to Earth to help in the evolution.
Wow.
And at this moment, we're being asked, are you ready for peace on Earth? Are you ready for this moment? Have you done everything that you needed to do that work? And the red magnetic moon wave spell is going to help us do that through feeling the emotions. Where are we with our emotions? Where are we with our triggers, with our fears? Because it's also part of the healing. The red moon is also very connected to healing, purification, reconnection to the natural cycle. So we, after the convergence, we're starting a whole new cycle for humanity, a whole new cycle. Even I would dare to say that it's for the solar system, because the effect of all of the comets at this moment is for all of the solar system.
Right.
So we've gone from the galactic night to the galactic day. That's what the convergence actually marked, the beginning of the galactic day. And it could be another 13,000 years of amazing evolution for us to be able to reunite with the galactic neighbors that we have and be galactic citizens again. So the red moon also has other qualities like self-remembrance. So this is the wave spell where you can reconnect who you truly are. What does your higher self tell you? How can you connect to your galactic self and beyond, who you are closest to source energy that you can actually embody at this moment? Did you want to add anything? The red moon is also connected to the power of universal water. So it's a good moment to reconnect with the water in our bodies because it stores all of our emotions and all of our charges. This is the reason why we need to purify at this moment. But it's also a good moment to connect and go to a river or to even in the shower and to ask the water, which is receiving all of the codes from the cosmos to help us do this purification process.
I mean, it's been talked about before, and in relation to what we feel is probably about to happen on the planet, the waters are very, very important. We don't really know what's in the waters of the planet, and we don't even really know what's in the waters of ourselves, but we do know that they carry a lot of unhelpful imprints and toxicity, which is a fractal way of saying that the oceans probably carry the same thing, and certainly our tap water does.
Yeah.
So, part of being human at the highest level is to have clean water. We are mostly water beings, and if our water is dirty, either inside of us in the taps that we get it from, or I'm sure many of you don't drink tap water, or even in the sea, as we know from all of the things that we've heard about the last couple of decades, is that this is all part of the purification process. And maybe the purification of the waters, the inner waters, is going to be reflected in the purification of the external waters in Mother Earth. So if that turns out and we see things perhaps being detoxified from the oceans, then you'll understand that this is all part of the process that has to happen. We don't know exactly how that can
Absolutely
happen.
watch the water this
Watch the
way,
waters,
because it's a moment of release and renewal. see the signs, pay attention to the signs. There is divine guidance during this wave spell. Try to connect more and more of the cosmic communication. It's a wave spell that teaches us about adaptability. If something comes your way, just be ready to adapt and be in the flow. Whatever happens without too much emotion or that could block you, just go with the flow and do what your instinct is telling you. It's a good moment to pay attention to all of the signs, as I was saying. And there could be some shadow connected to this wave spell. For example, resistance to flow, fears, negative self-talk, hiding your light, being too distracted with the computer, with the phone, with the TV, with work, with whatever that doesn't let you see the signs and the synchronicities so that you can take right action at the right time. And part of the transformation that is important for this wave spell is to be super grateful, to be able to forgive. We're going to hear quite a lot of information that is not easy to digest when it comes to what many institutions have done, many countries, many corporations, and many things like that. So we need to be ready to go into a state of adaptability, forgiveness, go with the flow, and don't get stuck in any more of those emotions, because we need to keep on cleansing to carry on with the process of creation and structure that we're giving to the new part of the dream. So, anything else that you want to add?
Maybe just a couple of points, and hopefully I'm not jumping ahead on the slides, but a lot of this process is about the restoration and balance of the masculine and feminine, but across the planet. And what we've been realizing as a species for many eons, maybe, but particularly the last decades, is that the males, the masculines, had been emasculated in many, many various ways. And this is the energy of Mars. In fact, this comes from an atlas.
We can.
You're going to talk about that in a minute.
We'll talk about it with the astrology, don't you think?
Well, yeah, maybe I'm just going to link it to the water slightly. So if we think about the role of the masculine as being protector, that kind of got distorted into being a destructor. And when that switch happens, the sacred role of the sacred masculine as the protector of the goddess, of the divine feminine, of the children was removed. And we can understand now from what we're learning how that has had an effect on everybody, how that's enabled the lower forces to take control of our minds. There was nothing there to stop them. There was no protector in place because it had been switched to a destructive frequency. And here again, we come into the waters piece, and we're going to look at this actually in the nature of the plants, because it's actually written about in prophecy. And the plant that we're going to talk about today is very, very good at cleansing the things that we perceive to be in the waters, not just in our bodies, but in the very depths of the ocean, who have actually been controlling the whole piece. So it's, as we do these shows, sometimes information comes through, and I just saw another piece there, which we'll go to in a minute.
So these are the reflective questions that can help you through the wave spell. And as every wave spell, make sure that you define a purpose for these 13 days. So connected to what we just talked about. So it could be about doing a final healing on your emotions, about self-remembrance, about purification and detox, about connecting to the new cycle, about a release and renewal. Maybe you need to let go that is toxic, about following the guidance and the signs and synchronicities. So any of those things could be part of defining the purpose for this wave spell, and then you continue day by day with those questions. And we talked about how important the 21st is going to be, but we'll talk about it in the astrology part. The higher archetype connected to the red moon is the healer. Is the healing energies, the divine feminine energies, and is that quest of self-remembrance. So the red moon, it's like a transmitting station. It's a beacon or transmitting station where you can receive cosmic information and also transmit. So that's one of the things, especially if you're a red moon and you're also a galactic activation portal, that's very much so. And I actually found out through Ruben and Mikuak that when they were interviewing Then winter, that is also a red moon and a galactic activation portal. So that's
right, and we're blessed to have 3 of these galactic activation portals, which when you look at them, they're green. They are part of the green ether castle, which is kind of somewhat hidden in the overlay of everything else. In the 260 Zolkin, you have I think there must be 52 green gap days. I've never counted them, but my intuition tells me there must be.
So, as you were saying before, with the number 9 is the connection to Quetzalcoatl, with the Buddha, with the Christ, with the great teachers that have come to translate all of that universal wisdom to humanity and to embody the awakened state of consciousness that now is accessible to all of us through our self-mastery. So it's now the moment of taking off the veil of forgetfulness and being able to reconnect with who we truly are. So the healer energy is very much present, not only for this Wavespell, but for the whole castle, because he's leading the whole castle for us to close this Solkin by December, which is when 3i Atlas is going to be closest to Earth. So give yourself this Wavespell and the next 52 days to do this process of healing and reconnection with who you truly are.
So these are really the ascended masters, or golden robes, as one of our wonderful tribe members has shared with us recently. And these beings are here to help us. They have come at various points in our history as guides, and they're here again, and they're really always here. We just have to open up the channels to connect with them. But with all of this cosmic dance going on, the connection and the lines of communication, or the channels, are so much more open, and the bandwidth is so much bigger now than certainly I've ever experienced. And what about you, Bella?
Yeah, I think it is the moment. I felt more connected to when we did Heaven on Earth, remember? Yes. We did a whole course where we reconnected with our guides, with the higher versions of ourselves. And maybe this is a good moment to mention.
Yeah, we've just written down here that we actually have just for the period up until the 26th of October, we've been guided once again to do a special offer on all of the courses on the quantumplanet.world website, which includes Heaven on Earth, which was a 6-part deep dive into working with your inner elemental energies and then understanding how to communicate with them in the external world. But if you're new to the world of the Mayan calendar, of the Zolkin, of the Dream Spell, of Jose Arguez, Bella's done 2 amazing courses. The Mayan Time and Magic is the basic foundation, how to understand how does it all work. And then the navigation guide, to quantum consciousness, really explores each of the 13 tones, which we also call the Ascension ladder, or the steps to creation, or many other variations. It's all essentially the same.
Zach explained it to us as the shortcut to integrate our process through the 13 dimensions and activating our DNA. So that's part. The navigation guide to quantum consciousness has a lot of sacred geometry and a lot of information. The navigation guide, highly recommended. The Mayan Time and Magic, if you want to learn more about the Mayan cosmology
and in general.
Yeah. The Heaven on Earth.
Heaven on Earth is, as I just said, a 6-part process to work with your inner medicine wheel, which we've also talked about in previous videos as being our own inner 12 Knights of the Round Table that, when integrated, connect to the magical 13th, which is the goddess. And really, when you do the 13 chapters of the navigation guide to quantum consciousness and you reach the 13th, we understood, both of us, really even deeper the importance of the 13th and why these 13 steps are there and why that cut was put between the 12th and the 13th.
And another one that I'm sure is going to get super hot from now on is all to do with the stellar nations, yes, with the fixed star astrology, because we bring a lot of many other constellations. And that course is also available, is done with the Western astrology, but it's easy to work with it. And it's done with Leslie Changman, which is
right, with our sister Leslie, of course. And for those of you who've reached out and asked recently, where can you get the software which we've recently been using? It's coming from our brother Afin Chimenti, who's a 13 sign sidereal astrologer. We can pop the link in the box.
Yeah, I think I.
And many of you have been asking about that. So these are all the tools that we use. We offer them and share them with you happily, so that we can all do this decoding and coordinate work together.
So if you want to do any of our courses, they're 50% discount. And what's the code?
The code is QC50. I'll put that to super easy to remember. I'll put that in the notes underneath. It's only until the 26th of October. Again, we've just been guided in this moment to share what we have as tools that many of our tribe, many of you watching this actually probably have done those courses, but we've also had a huge surge in subscriptions to our channel recently. Thank you very much, everybody. Yes. And we also have our YouTube membership, which we'll talk a little bit more about too.
Thank you for supporting us through in the channel by being by having the membership. And if you want to support our work, the membership is a great way of doing so. So thank you, everybody.
And actually, just to say, if you're wanting to understand more about the Mayan calendar, I do a 3-minute daily short in the YouTube membership, which is just an easy way to get into what is the glyph for the day, what is the key components. And I find it useful doing it myself to share. And many people who watch it say that they actually watch it first thing in the morning as a 3-minute meditation to get them into the mind of the Wavespell and of the glyph of the day. And that's when you start to feel the flow of the universal story, which is this technology at work, but you kind of have to live it, experience it. It's a very experiential system. It's not something for the monkey mind to work through.
Okay, so now we continue with the astrology. And as part of the true constellational astrology or true sidereal astrology with 13 signs, we're still in the sign of Virgo since September 15. It goes from September 15 up to November the 3rd. And I want us to start reconnecting with the higher notes of what Virgo is, because we've been disconnected thinking that at this time of the year, we were coming into the time of Scorpio, but it's actually the time of harvest and the time to connect with all of these wonderful qualities of the Virgo sign, which is fertility, gestation and birth, which is what is happening now for us. We're birthing a new humanity, a new version of ourselves, to embody the creation, to embody the energy of the goddess, the mother goddess energy. Is the energy of purification. So it's the same as the red moon. It's also very similar to the healer and purification energy, because this is also the healing energy of the zodiac, believe it or not, because it's by connecting through to plant medicine, to organic food, to all of these amazing energies that Virgo has for us. And so one of the things that show us that this is the case is that the goddess that rules this is to me, it connects to the meter and Ceres, and that's why I'm suggesting that it should be Ceres and Venus, both who rule this, and also to bring more integrity into everything that is connected to Virgo and what we do. There are many of us that now, the majority of the planet now is Virgo, because it has 48 degrees. So it's a big constellation full of lots of galaxies and clusters of stars that now are part. If we accept the true constellational astrology, then we accept all of this energy as part of it. And sacred abundance is also part of it. If you think about that, right now is the time of harvest. We reconnect with the pumpkins and everything that we've been talking about. Did you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, I'll let you finish the slide and I'll just add some.
One more thing I think is very important about this energy of Virgo is justice, divine justice. And I think is what is happening in the planet right now. We'll get to see more of that, but I think that with integrating the energy of the Mother Goddess energy, we'll see a balance and a real justice moving forward, because she holds the balances. You know, Libra is the next sign up, and if you look at the sky, at the constellation, this female has the balance right there next to her.
Right, so as many of you know, me and Bella are were both very Scorpio beings, sat 3 days either side of what is traditionally known, especially here in North America, as Halloween. To us more Celtic people, it's known as Swann. But many of you have also reached out in recent weeks about, like, with the new 13 sign sidereal system, well, how does this sit with the cross-quarter festivals? A really, really, really good question that's required a lot of thought. But now, as we switch the all spooky underworld driven energies of Scorpio, which there are many certainly in our audience and our tribe, and switch to Virgo, maybe you're thinking, but I'm not Scorpio or Virgo. Well, it doesn't really matter too much. It's the emphasis of the switch. So the goddess really with her harvest was being contained in the underworld by Scorpio, who of course the underworld was ruled by Hades, who Persephone, who's Demeter or Ceres' daughter, was with. And that's the whole sort of story of of Ceres that she had to make a compromise so that she could see her daughter 6 months of the year, and the other 6 months was in the underworld. So what have we got? We've got an abundance harvest where we get all of these beautiful squashes and chestnuts and these beautiful things that come through at this time of year. And then we cut spooky faces into the pumpkin and turn them into something that's macabre.
No, we don't.
Well, we did.
I didn't.
I didn't either. I never appealed to me, but in certain parts of the world, we can see that this has taken hold as a kind of societal tradition, which has then kind of kept it in that place. But now with this 13 sign sidereal switch from a Scorpio energy to a Virgo energy, as Bella's just pointed out, with the goddess of the harvest, perhaps this is a time to adjust what the cross-quarter festivals were, to reassess when they're meant to be aligned, because they must be misaligned somehow. Because otherwise we think, according to the cross-quarter festivals, that harvest is Lammas, which is the 1st of August, which is quite some time back now. So there's a lot of readjustment to do here, and it's still work in progress. But what we're seeing now is that this time of year that traditionally has had a bit of spooky energy to it can actually be infused by the goddess of the harvest. And for those of you who have switched, certainly sun signs from Scorpio to Virgo, and many of you maybe even Libras to Virgo. And of course, most people have had placements in Scorpio and Libra. So we've all got a connection, hopefully, to something in Virgo.
The signs.
We do, right? And so it's really just about an internal switch. And we're coming to understand that as much as anything else, our desire or our intuition or impetus to switch from the traditional Western astrology to the 13 sign sidereal astrology has all of the aspects of the 13, as we've been talking about. But it's also given those of us who are willing to do it the opportunity to switch to being a more authentic, as above, so below version of ourselves, and not the skewed version, which the Western astrology, unfortunately, has given us for the last period of time. And so this is all part of the reconfiguration that has been happening in the run-up to the convergence and has now pretty much got anchored in. And it's just about allowing it to expand within us, right?
So yeah, the fact that all of these movement with the comets and the conjunctions and everything is happening in Virgo tells us, I think we already had Atlas conjunct Mars, came really close to it, and the feeling was that the masculine needed to be rebalanced, new codes for the masculine, new codes for a masculine that is in integrity and that is going to protect life, the earth, women, children, and everything. So a restored masculine energy. And now we're going to have Atlas. Atlas is already in Virgo, but it's going to be conjunct Venus on November the 3rd, which is the last degree of Virgo. So the wrap up is with Virgo after the conjunction with the Sun, which is on the 21st, they're in superior conjunction, the Sun and Atlas. But then on the 29th is when they get the closest. The perihelion happens on the 29th of October. But then after that, I see that the connection to Venus is restoring the feminine energy. Once the other codes have been activated, is like restoring the feminine harmonic field, restoring the masculine feminine, bringing the heart-mind connection. We could think of the mind as more masculine and the heart as more feminine, but if they work in balance, we collaborate with Mother Earth to evolve into the new way of being. Yeah. So I wanted to show another thing, which is that we have 3 lunations in the sign of Virgo. Like, what more confirmation did we want that 3 of these very big events happen in Virgo? So the new moon that happened on the 21st with eclipse happened around here. You can see it in the sign of Virgo. So I put the stellarium, so you can see the moon and the sun at the beginning of Virgo. This here on the right would be Leo, Virgo, and then here is Libra. And so we see that there was a first lunation on the 21st, resetting. So I was waking up this morning with the upstairs, my guide saying, remember to mention that there was a reset even on this moment, because there was the new moon, the eclipse, and then on the day after there was the equinox, which was like the rebalancing moment. So that was the marker of that. The age of destruction is gone, and now we start the age of creation. So that's the first lunation, 21st of September. Then we had the full moon on October the 7th, which was in Pisces. We can see it here on the stellarium, and we can see it here in the chart. And here the sun was actually in Virgo, conjunct K1 Atlas, which is another comet. So there was already an activation on that day. And the third one is this one coming up, which is on the 21st of October. And we see again the moon and the sun. And then here David's going to talk a little bit more about this, about the astrology coming up for this day, which is super important. It has, as I mentioned, Atlas in superior conjunction. It's a Quetzalcoatl day. And it's also is it Lemmon that is closest to the earth? So there are many factors all coming to this moment of 21st of September, 21st of October.
And so if you just go back, for any of you who do follow the Stellar Nations pathway or follow any of the sharings that our sister Leslie Shankman puts out, or from Bayo and Aniko in Hungary, they were focusing on the conjunction of the sun with Speaker.
Yeah, I mentioned that.
Right. So, and again, pointing back to the video that myself and Leslie put out, where we look at the angels in relation to the moon that we've just gone through, because Speaker is an incredibly important point in all of this. And I think you mentioned it on the last Quantum Compass.
The last three, because
Yeah.
it's super important.
In fact, we're in it now as we're recording.
When we
Yeah.
talk about Speaker, it's an eight-dimensional world that is connected to angelic beings that are here to support the process of destiny of humanity. So that's what they're helping us do at this moment. We have the support not only from the beings in Atlas and maybe in some of the other crafts, but also from the angelic beings. So let's go into the comments because there is a lot of information. We're being infused with brand new plasma energy that is the one helping us activate the new codes and our DNA to the 13 strands that we need.
Right. So I'd just like to say a couple of points around this. Hopefully everyone watching this has seen the incredible video we did with our sister Janet and the Ascended Master Zach, who's an emanation of Dwar Kul. And we asked him a question that was very much on our minds, not on our minds, was in our feeling that we were actually communicating with cosmic aspects of ourself that were somewhere on Atlas. Well, as it turns out, there's a lot more of us, I mean, each one of us in the cosmos than we'd realized, and we're connected to many, many different what are called stellar nations or cosmic families. Now, over the last Wavespell, hopefully many of you have had the same experiences that me and Bella have had, which is to actually sit in meditation and have direct communication with those aspects of ourselves through going inwards and communicating with the DNA that is resonant with those aspects of ourselves, which is what we asked Zach to confirm for us. And he did very, very strongly. He said, yes, I couldn't tell you that, but you've asked, and so I can confirm. So I'd like to share with everybody the possibility when in meditation to ask those aspects of yourselves, cosmic aspects that you're aware of, to come through and communicate with you. If you have done the Stellar Nations pathway and understand about your angelic DNA, your dragon DNA, your snake DNA, your whale DNA, your bear DNA, all of these things represent the different constellations in the sky above us. And it's all very carefully laid out. And it's actually interesting to learn because it's done through archetypal energies. But with this methodology and opening up those channels, we can actually communicate with many of the beings that are currently circling above us at this time for upgrading of our DNA, elevation of our soul back to pretty much back to the level of the aspect that we're communicating with, because as multidimensional beings and with potential Buddha mind, we can be in simultaneous locations and many simultaneous locations in time and space. Now, quantum physics proves this. This is not a woo-woo idea. This is actually something that's very plausible, and many of us are experiencing it. So this perhaps is an indicator of what this whole piece is about, the integration of our cosmic DNA so that we can become fully aware on the inner planes of who we are, and then understand that who we are is the universe. and we can actually communicate with those aspects of us that are our stellar ancestors, but are embodied in us through the DNA that they gave for this experiment that we now call the human Earth sim reality, or whatever else you want to call it. But that is now about to change in some way so that we can become the embodied aspects of our cosmic selves in the 3D mix. How it's going to happen, well, that's the magic, and it's all in the mixing bowl with all of the ingredients, but we'll see how this plays out. But here, with the wonderful Skylive app, which you can all find online, we've just pulled up where we are on the 21st of October for this new moon. So what would you like to say about this, Bella?
Well, more than anything, you can appreciate here the superior conjunction. So here's the sun, here's the earth, and superior is when it's farthest from us. So we see three-eye atlas, but we also see how close Swann is to the earth on the 21st. Actually, it's been really close to us for about a week. And also Lemmon is very, very close. Look at the amount of comets around us. So it tells me that this is an orchestrated cosmic activation and something that is helping us with a lot of support to go to the next stage of our human evolution.
So, as always, we like to give open invitations on these videos for you to go and do these things too. It would be great for those of you who meditate and perhaps have the channels open a bit more, or if you don't, to try and see if you can connect with the energies on Lemmon, on Swann, on Atlas, or maybe any of the comets. And as we've talked about already, the mind is the obstructor here. It will put thoughts into your head and try to construct things. Observe those as they come up and allow the communications to come through without any kind of impediment or trying to grasp. The mind loves to grasp onto ideas and extend them into things that they're not. The real communication is really a body medicine that comes through the heart, often as a form of telepathy. Some people out there have been moved to comment that they felt Swann was very much connected to the fairy realm. I actually personally also feel that after some meditations this week. And the fairy realm is really connected to many of what in the stellar nations is the bird nation, but particularly Denibadij, which is featured in Göbekli Tepe. And I think we've talked about this a lot in previous videos. So this is how we can start to put the pieces of all of these things together, the history, the stellar nations, our own internal meditations, our own DNA, the integration of all of this, and of course, with that conjunction with Speaker, we had a lot of communication with Archangel Michael, who is the guardian of humans at this point. And as we've shared in other videos, and if you haven't seen before, we understand now that his plan, in accordance with Metatron and with the Creator, was the reintegration of all of these stellar beings who were all actually not getting on. And so they put all of their DNA into a petri dish, which we call the modern human, for them to work those difficulties out. And that was really Michael's plan that he's been overseeing. So we can understand that all of this is now coming to a place of culmination and elevation, which I think is super exciting.
Since we're on the comets, I'm just going to mention this part before we go and go deeper into the astrology. So if you can see actually Lemmon, if you go out at night, you can see it now, and it's really close to Arcturus. If you see here, the Buddhist constellation, we have Arcturus here, and then this is the journey of Lemmon. So the closest point to Earth is on the 21st of October. And this just adds more to the picture of what we've been talking about, because this is a constellation called as the plowman or the ox driver. And in mythology, it was Demeter's son. In one version, Bootis is the son of the goddess Demeter, who invented the plow, which pleased the goddess so much that she placed him in the sky.
Nice.
So look at the connection of everything we've been talking about. And also, Arcturus is the guardian, and the Buddhist constellation, the guardian of the bears, because then the Big Dipper is the Ursa Major, and it's like the spiritual home. Also, the connection of Arcturus to Melchizedek and the tree of knowledge and the teachings and sciences, because Arcturus is an 8-dimensional world star, which is connected to the male serpent teachings. So if we think that the masculine line is being now upgraded, not
Yeah,
upgraded.
maybe I'll just add in some. So what we kind of come to understand is that the mind, as we sort of know it as the egoic mind, is really largely down to the male serpent lineage of Melchizedek because it can hold vast amounts of knowledge. But knowledge is not the same as wisdom, and this is where these beings got a little bit entangled and got themselves into a mess and started to fall because they placed the emphasis on the accumulation of knowledge and quite often not their own knowledge, other people's wisdom that they then took and kind of offered as their own, which is a little bit disingenuous and not really befitting of a high-powered teacher who should be in his integrity and his authenticity. So we can see how all of these bits and pieces are coming together now. And, there are many, many amazing male teachers that have been on the planet. People like Yeshua, Quetzalcoatl, Toph, these are all in the lineage of Melchizedek,
Yeah.
which is somehow connected to the very upper echelons of the serpent lineage, which of course is also the entwined caduceus, the masculine and feminine. So there are so many converging pieces here, which are starting to make sense of us. And of course, any of those beings that fell at the point of convergence also, like all of us, are looking for redemption. The biggest beings that fall have the biggest redemption, as we've said before. And when they do, it gives a huge upsurge to the collective grid.
So, because the masculine energy within ourselves and for our solar system is being now restored and repaired, we can access more of these higher teachings, and science and spirituality can come together, and we can do more of the work that we were meant to be doing here by activating all of that knowledge within ourselves. Alchemy is one of the processes that we can access through this energy. So the other one, so that was Lemmon, which you can see in the sky at sunset, just after sunset, between the 15th and 24th of October. But then Swann, look at the trajectory of Swann. To me, is connecting to the serpent's constellation, which is connecting us to, it already came this way, meaning that it is activating the female serpent, which is the counterpart of what we
Yes,
were
the
just
the
talking about.
healer.
The healer, the feminine intuition, the life force that reconnects us to the center of the galaxy. This that we see here, this kind of blurred area, it's actually the center of the galaxy and is in between the serpents and Sagittarius. Scorpio is down here somewhere. But serpents is the one that guards all of this section until we go up to Aquila. So look at the area of the sky that is activating. So it tells me that the red moon, the healer, is also bringing all of this energy, reconnecting us to the life force that is then given to the worlds by this activation with the comets. The Serpent's constellation also, it's about rebirth and transformation, is the kingdom of the goddess, is the channel of sacred vitality. Think about how much distortion was created with the whole story of the serpent in different stories because they didn't want us to connect to this, to the center of the galaxy, and for us to reclaim our sacred vitality. This reconnects us to the source of creation, to the motherly love of the goddess, to the healing mysteries, to Tantra, and is the chalice of supreme wisdom. So I see this as a very big sign of the masculine and feminine lineages getting activated so that we can go to the higher octave, which is the Christ consciousness energy.
So do you mind just going back there a slide, just that no, yeah, that one. So this is something that's it just dawned on me really, is that if we look at the world we live in, the healing modalities that are the de facto healing modalities are the ones that have given us the poisonous medications. And the people that are meant to be the male teachers are the ones who've given us the erroneous, faulty historical records and many other things that they've taught us using the 1260 conundrum rather than the 1320 solution. And so we can see how the male and female serpent energy has fallen. But as Bella's about to show us, when they're restored, they give us a different type of consciousness. And it's not, we have to observe, hey, I'm a male, you're a female, you have to do your bit. No, no, no. We have the male and female serpent energy within us. We are all both healers and teachers, and we can choose which pathway we prefer to go on if we feel called to either of those. But it just dawned on me, Bella, that we've been lacking great teachers and great healers, planetarily wise, for a very, very long time.
So what I wanted to just wrap up that part that it connects us to the fixed stars and the constellations is that Around the October 28th, 29th, is when I feel this activation of the Christ consciousness starts, because two of the pillars of Christ consciousness get activated. One is the star Delta Crucis, which is connected to divine will, to gold and silver threads, and the seven wisdoms connected to Christ consciousness. And then Gakru is also getting activated. They are only 1 degree apart from each other. And Gakru reconnects us to divine mercy, to grace, redemption, which is what the planet is going through. When souls are called to the light, and Mary, Mother Mary, is the guardian of this star. So I see all of the threads happening. So during this wave spell, the first two portals open, and in the next wave spell, the next two pillars of the Christ consciousness will be also activated. So I think it's super symbolic.
Right, so just for confirmation for those of you who are a little bit new to this information, as Bella said, in the new Virgo directives, these first two pillars of the four pillars of the sacred temple of the Christ consciousness are here, as she's put out, 42 to 43 degrees of Virgo, which is roughly what was 5 degrees of Scorpio.
5 or 6.
Yeah, so if you're still trying to make the switch, I'm just trying to make it easy. And as Bella said, the other two pillars of the temple are going to come up, I think, at the beginning of the next wave spell, and they are literally in the last degrees of Virgo, which is
48.
48. And in the old school days of the old Western astrology, that was around 11 degrees of Scorpio. So if you have any placements there, it'll still be the same. You'll still be connected to those. So you might be feeling that energy a little bit stronger.
Okay, now let's do the astrology. We just got there is telling you
Well, I
guys
think
that
you've kind
this
of given
wave
the
spell
astrology,
is
really. The astrology seems a little it's just supporting it all, really. So, as always, given for the sake of ease, here the bigger chart on the left is the 13th sign, sidereal astrology, as we were talking about, and here on the right is the more traditional Western. Now, we put the Western because the system that we're using here, the software, doesn't quite have all of the asteroids that we like to work with. And we work with some significant ones, including Yeshua, Magdalene, Sophia, Quetzalcoatl, Quercus the Oak, and many others that we've deep dived with. Atlantis, even Hidalgo, the warrior monk. And we've done actual immersions with our tribe on some of these. And so we felt the energies of them, so we can read a little bit about what they're doing. But here on the left, we have the new moon in Virgo, as we can see on the left, just over here at 35 degrees, sun and moon conjunct in Virgo. But what's also interesting, which isn't shown on this one, but if we skip across to here, we can see, you might have to zoom in on your screen, but we actually have the asteroid Quetzalcoatl conjunct the sun and the moon on the 21st of October. Imagine, how did that happen?
That's why it's a Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah, so, and what makes it even more amazing when we look at this one over here, although you should be able to see it on both, is that the sun, moon, and Quetzalcoatl are at the head of a yod, which is a finger of God. Now, we've talked about these before, but it seems very, very pertinent that the sun and the moon, which is also masculine and feminine, and we're also, we believe, going to go through a reconfiguration of what the sun and the moon actually mean to us, and they're also going to get restored to their uppermost notes. Many people have also questioned and queried, finding it hard to connect to the moon. Is it real? Many valid and important questions that I think are going to get answered very soon. And Bella was looking at the comet Lemmons, and I can't remember exactly, but you perceived, I think, that Lemmon was either going to be between the moon and the sun, or it was going to be between the earth and moon. I can't remember exactly which, but it felt when we were looking into it that the comet Lemmon was going to come and actually, what's the word I'm looking for? Deconfigure or I don't know, dissolve. Well, not dissolve the moon, but to deprogram maybe.
The grid that connects.
Yes, because the moon is a reflection of the matrix. And as we were talking about at the beginning with our chakras, very much like the movie, very, very on point. It's almost like we have plugs into our chakras, and they come in different forms with parasitic energies, programs, overlays, all kinds of things. But those are now being unplugged. And as that happens, we're going to get to remember our true selves. And it feels to me that this yod is really pointing literally to the sun and the moon as what you just talked about, the balance of masculine and feminine, the solar external and the lunar internal, or the yin energies. But also we have this great male serpent teacher, Quetzalcoatl, who's very much loved and respected in Central America. There are some more nefarious stories about it, but then, anyone who's worth their salt over the last few millennia has a few nefarious stories in their kit and caboodle, as I'm sure we all do, which is part of the redemption process. So it feels to me that this yod is pointing to redemption.
Yes.
And at the base of the yod, we have Uranus, which is really asking us to step into the unknown in some ways, something magical, unexpected, paradigm changing, even.
Can I add something there with Uranus? Is at the point where it's conjunct many of the stars from the Pleiades, which I think bring a lot of angelic healing, universal consciousness, healing of emotional wounds. So that point where Uranus is very important.
And when we look at the true sidereal astrology here, we see that Uranus is in Taurus. So it tends to suggest that it's all going to come from the earth, the innovations of the future with the goddess, with Ceres, Demeter, with those Virgo energies is all going to come from the earth, which is pretty much what I think many of us have felt for a very, very long time deep in our bones. And it's what we've all been working for. So I find that pretty exciting, to be honest. And if we look across to the other foundational corner of the yod, it's being upheld by Neptune, which is in its more upper notes, especially in Pisces, where it feels very much at home, is about spirituality.
Yes.
And exploring the mysteries, the esoteric mysteries, the hidden, because the hidden is now going to become the seen. The occult will now become the overt. And I think this yod is really indicating to us how it's going to do that.
I think with spiritual maturity is one of the things that have to be part, and the creation of a new time, because Saturn is there in Pisces, being instructed of, okay, with this redemption and after the convergence, we need to start a new way of doing time, which is not the same. It has to be connected to our spirit or to spirit.
Right. I mean, we can say somewhat in the midpoint of that Yoda. It's maybe not completely precise. We also have Chiron, actually, which is currently conjunct Eris. So it kind of makes sense that that would be the opposition to the Sun and Moon. It's like healing is needed, and where better than with the goddess, with the components of Uranus bringing a new type of healing, which I personally believe is quantum. And as many of you who follow these channels, our channel for a long time, you know that we're very much into quantum plant intelligence, all of which we're going to be sharing a bit more with you in a minute as part of the wrap up for this Wavespell. So I find that all very interesting, Bella. We also have here Mars and Mercury conjunct 7 degrees of Libra, but also fairly conjunct Black Moon Lilith. So it feels like more of the feminine that wants to assist here. And I'm going to link a plant in a minute to Black Moon Lilith. Or just Lilith now, actually. It doesn't need to be a black moon. I think Lilith is just sufficient. So those are the main points I picked out. Is there anything else really in conjunction with what we said before that's important?
It's easier to see the grand trine here on the Western chart, but you can also perceive it here. So we have in one of the tips of this grand trine, Mars and Mercury. Then we have Jupiter in Gemini, and we have
Neptune and
Saturn in Pisces. And so if we think about those two, Mars and Mercury, it tells me that it's the time to take action, that everything is balanced, that justice is brought forward with the right information. So it talks to me about the revealing of information that is going to help us with this process of justice and for it to be done in a balanced and diplomatic way. So I would see lots of agreements going on around different countries and different nations and many things that say, okay, we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to communicate and we're going to create more diplomacy so we get moving forward with these peace agreements and everything.
Right. And in many ways, in the archetypal story, part of Lilith's issue was with the masculine had pretty much abused her, really, all of which is now getting undone because we understand that there was another force behind all of this that did this to all of us, the masculine and the feminine, which is what we were alluding to at the beginning of this call, which is now about to be purged by Mother Earth from the waters in some way, all of which will come up in the plants in a second too. So, and of course, Mercury is going to communicate that to us from the balance place of justice and equality in Libra. So that feels like a pretty good conjunction to me.
And I mentioned in the previous two shows, the point of where Pluto is already gone direct. So now we start the creation. It just became direct a couple of days ago. So now we're ready to start destroying what is left of the old structures and then start rebuilding the new ones. To me, this is super symbolic because there were many of those planets are in the same signs as they were 250 years ago when it was the Declaration of Independence for the US in 1776. So if you want to see more of that, I go deeper into it in the previous show. But to me, this is the moment where we begin the construction, the reconstruction after everything that is collapsing, and we need to see it happen.
Right, we really do. And maybe as part of that, the Orcus, the oath breaker, is actually being conjuncted by Venus in Virgo too. And I did a deep dive for our YouTube membership on Orcus and the Plutino aspect of it. Very, very interesting. I think very, very relevant to now because we're actually letting go of all of the old contracts, all of the faulty contracts, the false ones which we signed up to, which is a lot of the paperwork in our world. And I feel like that's all about to be released.
So one of the most important ones that we're already starting to see is the financial. Gold and silver just broke the record prices. Gold is over $4,000. Silver is over $50. And when that happens, is the signs of, okay, the old financial system is ready to collapse and we're going to bring something new. And that new system does involve some digital and crypto as part of the new system, but also gold and silver. So I think that Uranus there is going to show us more.
Yeah, and of course, if we think about it, gold is the sun, silver is the moon, so more masculine, feminine rebalancing. And there are many, many exciting things coming with what is rapidly being acknowledged as the quantum financial system. Many people poo-pooed it as woo-woo some time ago, but it's now very clear that it's about to come online, and lots of minds. Luminous minds on the planet have been lending their assistance in the higher realms of consciousness, even with the beings on some of the comets, to understand how does it work, because it's the universal system of exchange. And actually what it does is it works with the abundance of Mother Earth without having to destroy Mother Earth. That's the critical difference. The inverted system we've been living with is drill baby drill and all of that kind of stuff. And there's no need for it because the wealth doesn't need to be extracted. At a quantum level, we can work with quantum intelligence like we do with plants, but we can do with gold and silver.
And the most symbolic thing we need to see is free energy. Yes. Once the planet and humanity has free energy, we're free. Liberation is here, and then everything starts to follow right after that. So it's a collaboration, and we all created. So whatever you think, whatever you feel goes into the grid. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Let's purify during this wave spell and let's start imagining how we're going to rebuild this planet.
Right, so hopefully we've given a nice overview of what we see and a few things that we hadn't seen but saw during doing the video. We've managed to share with you. And now as a final part, we're going to just talk briefly about plants that we've talked about many, many times before, but they're probably one of the most amazing plant species, in my opinion, on the planet. And here we have four of the most well-known, but we're going to talk about them through the filter of the moon, our Kundalini chi energy, and purification, because this species of plants, otherwise known as the Artemisias, do all of that. And they're very, very connected to the serpent beings. That's the story for another time.
Serpent lineage.
The serpent lineage, absolutely. Their energy is very serpentine. We've worked with them as a tribe on our internal dragon system, the meridian lines, and also the dragon energies of the earth, because serpent and dragon are also in the same family. So here we have Artemisia vulgaris on the left, aka Mugwort. We have Artemisia nua, Sweet Annie, Artemisia absinthium, the traditional wormwood, and kitchen favorite, Artemisia dracunculus, otherwise known as French tarragon. All reasonably available. Certainly tarragon is available in most supermarkets, so you can get hold of this medicine easily from anywhere. And if you like gardening, these plants are super hardy, particularly wormwood is very, very resilient. But actually, mugwort is also pretty easy to grow too, wherever you are in the world. And as we've shared before, there are over 400 species of Artemisias worldwide. So wherever you are in the world, there should be one that's local to you. And we always recommend using the local one, but if you can't find one in the wild, and they've probably gone over it at this time of the year, certainly in the Northern Hemisphere, just go to your favorite trusted medicinal plant supplier and either get a capsule form, a powder form, or just have the plants and use them in a tea.
Right.
Which is going to come to in a minute. So those are just 4 of the 400. There are many, many more. Southernwood is also one that many people tend to grow. So here we have Artemisia vulgaris, Lady Mugwort. She is a high-powered moon plant of the goddess. I love this image on the left. It speaks to me very much of Mugwort. Happily growing under a full moon energy. And she's very much a plant at this time of the year in many ways. She's very much connected to the feminine cycle. She's connected to the moon. And I'll put that here also. But she's really, really good for dream work, and she helps improve our third eye's capability. She shows us where we're getting hijacked in our third eye. And as our dear friend Zach shared with us on one of the transmissions, which you can also see somewhere on our platform, he said that the Artemisias as plant beings are uncorruptible, which I think is a good thing because a lot of the stuff in our world is corrupted. Even unfortunately, some plants have been used for corrupt purposes. But Mugwort, in fact, like the yew tree, another one that's not corruptible, requires the user to be impeccable. And if you're not, she will give you a little whack across the head and say, hey, buddy, you're not actually cutting the mustard here, and I need to let you know why. She does it with love, but she can also be a little stern. That's the energy of Mugwort, and this is the quantum plant intelligence of Mugwort. She was my first teacher into this world, and she's still one of my favorite teachers today. She's actually most well known, and again, just repeating this, but it's important in this context, in traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, particularly in what is known as moxa or moxibustion, where they work with Chinese mugwort, which is known as Artemisia argi, which is the one on the right. Looks very, very similar to traditional mugwort, but it's just a regional version. There are also other versions of mugwort that grow in the US, coastal mugwort, prairie sage mugwort. There are many, many different forms. So this plant, when burned over the acupuncture needles in moxibustion, has the effect of helping to improve chi energy flow. And what it does is it pushes that heat energy through the moxa and the needle. So basically they burn the Chinese mugwort over the end of the acupuncture. The heat and the medicine goes down through the needle into our meridian system, and it pushes chi energy into places where there isn't any, i.e. stagnant areas. So this is a plant that for me absolutely embodies all of the things that we've been talking about, has a very, very serpentine quality. I can do many other things. She's also amazingly good for midwifery. And that's because she can help regulate the feminine moon cycles. But also as a warning, we shouldn't take mugwort once we're pregnant. She can help you get pregnant and she can help deliver the birth because she's an abortifacient, but not good to take during pregnancies. Just putting that disclaimer in there. But you can really, in fact, on occasions over retreats, it's been quite noticeable how all of the females in a retreat, all of their moon cycles working with mugwort will instantly all synchronize on the first day. 30, 40 people. It's quite incredible. That's the power of this plant. So this is mugwort. I recommend having a cup of mugwort tea, maybe before bed, or some essence, and with the intention, hey, mugwort, I want to go into the dream space. I want to connect to the dream. So that's one plant that can help you do that. It's also quite a palatable tea, which is not something I can say for one of my favorite plants, which is Artemisia absinthium, Lady Wormwood. Highly, highly bitter. But she is the most powerful anti-parasitic plant on the planet. And that's really, really important because a lot of what we've been talking about, the energies that have held sway over us, are parasitic in nature. And this plant can remove both physical and astral parasites. And many of the followers in this channel probably even experienced that from myself and Bella in various calls that we've done. But this is the primo plant. It was also the basis of ivermectin, which is something that probably many of you are aware about. Why is it important now? Well, as Bella has already alluded to, we're going to need to detoxify. And one of the things that needs to be detoxified is parasitic energies. Mm-hmm. So it's deeply connected to the serpents, especially the female healing serpents, and carries the embodiment of a fully restored Lilith aspect of the goddess. It's mentioned in the book of Revelations. I definitely recommend going back and reading that passage again, because when I think the third angel blows its trumpets, which is also an interesting thing for another call, a star appears, and the star's name is Wormwood, and Wormwood gets into the water and makes it bitter. Are you starting to see the picture, everybody? So it can remove all ET implants, programs, and technology at a quantum level, which is another way of saying that it can remove those astral interferences in our field that are distorting and hijacking. So this is why we recommend to everybody to do a parasite cleanse. And if you haven't done one this year, I would absolutely start one now. You can go online. The Dr. Hulda Clark parasite cleanse is an excellent one, or you can just go it alone with Wormwood and call her in and ask her to cleanse all of the parasitic energies in your field. Normally takes roughly about 17 days, but again, you can douse on it or work out what's best for you. She's a very, very humorous being, considering she's so powerful, unlike Mugwort, who can be a little strict in my experiences. Is very high in Tujone, which is an aspect of the drink absinthe that can open up to the psychic realms. And it is considered to be a toxic plant, but honestly, for that to happen, you'd have to drink liters of the stuff, and it's too unpalatable to do that. So I don't think you have to worry. So I'm just putting that.
Caution, yeah.
It's a caution, just to make people aware of that. But honestly, you couldn't drink too much wormwood.
And you could even buy the capsules of organic wormwood, and 2 capsules. I mean, or do you just plan a detox for a week or during the Wavespell?
Right, and it's also just worth putting in here, the one on the left is Artemisia absinthium, and the one on the right, which looks a little different, is Artemisia nua, otherwise known as sweet wormwood or sweet honey. This is the best remedy on the planet for one of the biggest bioweapons, which is known as malaria. And we all know who's connected to this and who's also tried to actually come up with a facsimile of this plant with GMO. Found a whole project about that once. No, but these are all the things that we are now realizing that have been going on. And these plants are here to show us the true way, working with nature, working with Mother Earth and the goddess. It's easy to grow these plants in the garden.
It's the Virgo way now.
It's the Virgo way. So as I've remembered my Virgo self, I've also remembered my love of plants in recent weeks and been out growing Artemisias, interestingly enough. So that's really all I have to say about the Artemisias. If you want to go to a wormwood parasite cleanse, absolutely recommend. If it feels a little bit too much and you've done one recently, I would just really tap into the dream world of Mugwort.
That's it. Just the invitation to reconnect to natural time and the true sky, to be in the power of the now, to remember that time is art. So whatever you do with your time, make sure that it's a beautiful creation. Be in the flow, which is what this Wavespell is reminding us to do. And also, since the 21st of October is a new moon, and we have this Wavespell to go through, so you can combine the purpose or the intentions to be connected to the Wavespell. So what do you want? We talked about cosmic code activation. We talked about purification. We talked about the psychic abilities, the reconnection to the 13. There are many things that you could actually work with at this moment.
Right. And go quantum. Talk to the plants at a quantum level. Talk to yourself at the quantum level. If you want to be a quantum being, you have to start engaging with it. That's part of the deal. And the plants offer an amazing bridge to do that, because they're already quantum, and their magic is embodied in the plants. And by understanding the 3D aspects of the medicine, you understand the incredible universal cosmic abilities of these super beings, all of which are going to be sharing more. And again, just to reiterate, we have a 50% offer. 50% off rather of all of the courses on QPW, including the Stellar Nations, which hopefully we've given a nice plug here for, because it's an amazing pathway and can really help when working, in fact, with Dandelion, especially a DNA specialist, to activate our inner stellar codes. Yes, exactly. And also, I think you want to say something about the new moon, Bella?
Yeah, just what I said, that the 21st of October is new moon, but we're also starting today a new moon in the 13 calendar. So they're all synchronized. We have the new moon, just to recap, the new moon, which is the 4th moon, the moon of form, with the owl, the psychic abilities. We're starting the new castle as well, which is the green castle. From the ether, try to create everything from there. The Wavespell, we talked enough about, purification and the red moon and everything. Anything else?
And the only other thing, just to remind everybody, please do check out the YouTube membership. We will be uploading a series of videos that myself and the brother Pete Jackson, main wonderful herbalist, Did actually over several immersions. So there are a few timestamps in there, but the information about the quantum plant intelligence of all of the plants that we've looked at, including the culinary master that is the little dragon, Tarragon, we're going to put those up, and that's available for just $10 a month, and certainly helps us here at QPW keep providing all of this wonderful content for you all. So hopefully we'll see you there, maybe in the tribe. We do have our regular calls. Head over to quantumplanet.world, hit the join and subscribe button, which just takes 5 seconds, and then you get access to the free monthly live calls and many other presentations that we do for our members over there. So enjoy the new moon, enjoy the intentions, and dive into something new. Embrace what is coming in. Let go of the old and get excited about the new. And it is the season to be thankful, after all. So enjoy, everybody.
In Lakesh.
In Lakesh.